I never expected my life to take such a wild turn, but looking back, the signs were there all along. It started innocently enough, a weekend visit to my girlfriend's place, where her younger sister, Lila, lived as well. Lila was everything I wasn't: confident, effortlessly stylish, and unapologetically feminine. I'd always admired her from a distance, though I'd never admit it. She had this way of carrying herself, like she owned every room she walked into, and part of me envied that. The first real shift happened one lazy Sunday afternoon. My girlfriend, Jess, had gone out to run errands, leaving me alone with Lila. I was sprawled on the couch in sweatpants and an old t-shirt, scrolling mindlessly through my phone, when Lila walked in, her eyes scanning me with an amused smirk. She didn't say anything at first, just tilted her head as if studying me. Then, with a playful glint in her eye, she asked if I'd ever considered how I'd look in something more polished. I laughed it off, assuming she was joking. But Lila wasn't the type to joke about fashion. Before I knew it, she was pulling me up from the couch, her fingers wrapping around my wrist with surprising strength. There was something thrilling about her confidence, the way she took charge without hesitation. She led me to her room, a space that smelled like vanilla and lavender, with clothes strewn artfully over every surface. My heart pounded as she rummaged through her closet, finally pulling out a silky blouse and a pair of skinny jeans. "Try these," she said, handing them to me. It wasn't a request. I hesitated, my face burning. The idea of wearing women's clothes had crossed my mind before, but only in fleeting, secret thoughts I'd never dared explore. Yet here was Lila, staring at me expectantly, as if this were the most normal thing in the world. Something about her presence made it impossible to refuse. I changed in the bathroom, my hands trembling as I buttoned the blouse. The fabric was softer than anything I'd ever worn, clinging to my body in ways that felt strangely right. The jeans hugged my legs, making me hyper-aware of every movement. When I finally stepped out, Lila's eyes lit up. She circled me like an artist inspecting her work, adjusting the collar of the blouse, tucking it in just so. Then, without a word, she guided me to her vanity. Sitting in front of the mirror, I barely recognized myself. Lila's fingers worked magic. Foundation smoothed my skin, mascara darkened my lashes, a touch of blush warmed my cheeks. With every stroke, I felt myself slipping into someone new, someone freer. When she finished, I stared at my reflection, breathless. The person looking back at me was undeniably feminine, and, to my surprise, I loved it. Lila saw the realization in my eyes. She didn't gloat or tease, just smiled knowingly and handed me a pair of her ankle boots. "Walk in these," she instructed. My first steps were clumsy, but she steadied me, her touch firm yet gentle. By the time Jess came home, I was back in my own clothes, but nothing felt the same. That night, lying in bed, I couldn't stop thinking about how alive I'd felt in Lila's clothes under her guidance. It was like a door had been opened, one I hadn't even known existed. The next time Jess was away, I found myself knocking on Lila's door. She answered with a smirk, as if she'd been expecting me. What followed wasn't just about the clothes, it was a transformation. Lila taught me how to walk, how to sit, how to embrace femininity without shame. With every lesson, I shed another layer of hesitation. Jess never found out, and maybe that was for the best. This was between Lila and me, a secret world where I could be someone else, or perhaps more myself than I'd ever been. And as I stood in front of the mirror one final time, wearing a dress Lila had picked just for me, I realized this wasn't just cross-dressing. It was the beginning of something deeper, something I was finally ready to explore. And it was all thanks to her. The weeks that followed were a blur of stolen moments and secret transformations. Every time Jess left the apartment, whether for work, errands, or nights out with friends, I found myself drawn to Lila's room like a moth to a flame. What had started as a playful experiment quickly became something far more intoxicating. Lila was a demanding teacher, but in the best way. She didn't just dress me up, she reshaped me. She taught me how to apply eyeliner without trembling, how to walk in heels without wobbling, how to carry myself with the kind of effortless grace I'd always admired in her. There was something hypnotic about the way she took control, her fingers brushing against my skin as she adjusted my wig or smoothed out the wrinkles in a skirt. I had never felt so vulnerable, yet so empowered. One evening, she surprised me with a shopping bag. Inside was a dress, soft pink, fitted at the waist, with delicate lace sleeves. "This is yours now," she said, her voice firm. "Try it on." I did, right there in front of her, no longer shy about stripping down to my panties and bra, both of which, of course, Lila had picked out for me. The dress fit perfectly, hugging my body in ways that made my breath catch. When I turned to the mirror, I barely recognized the woman staring back. My posture was different, my movements smoother. Even my facial expressions had softened, shaped by Lila's relentless coaching. "Good," she murmured, stepping closer. "But you're not done yet." From her drawer, she produced a small velvet box. Inside was a delicate silver necklace with a tiny pendant. Without a word, she fastened it around my neck, her fingers lingering just a second longer than necessary. The cool metal against my skin sent a shiver down my spine. "Now you're perfect," she whispered. I should have been nervous when Lila suggested going out. "Just a short walk," she said, "around the block at night when no one would pay attention." But the idea sent a thrill through me. The risk of being seen, of someone recognizing me beneath the makeup and feminine clothes, was terrifying, and yet I wanted it. The night air was crisp as we stepped outside, my heels clicking softly against the pavement. Lila linked her arm with mine, her warmth steadying me. Every shadow felt like a pair of eyes, every distant laugh like someone about to point and shout, "That's a man." But no one did. A couple walking past barely glanced our way. A car rolled by without slowing. For the first time, I realized I passed. When we got back, giddy and breathless, Lila didn't let me change right away. Instead, she poured us both a glass of wine, and we sat on her bed, the adrenaline still humming under my skin. "You're beautiful like this," she said quietly, her gaze tracing the curves of the dress, the way my legs crossed at the knee. I believed her. Jess never suspected a thing. To her, I was still her boyfriend, the same guy who wore hoodies and jeans, who never cared much about appearances. But the more time I spent with Lila, the more that version of me felt like a costume. Then came the night everything changed. Lila had been unusually quiet all evening, her eyes dark with something I couldn't read. When Jess left for a weekend trip to visit her parents, Lila turned to me and said, "We're doing something different tonight." She led me to her closet and pulled out a box I hadn't seen before. Inside was a sleek black wig, long and silky, and a dress unlike any I'd worn before, deep red, fitted, undeniably sexy.
"Put it on," she said.
I obeyed, my pulse racing. The dress clung to me like a second skin, the neckline dipping just low enough to hint at cleavage, another one of Lila's tricks. Padded bras had become my best friend. The wig transformed me completely, the dark strands framing my face in a way that made my features look softer, more delicate. Lila didn't stop there. She did my makeup heavier than usual, smoky eyes, bold red lips. When she stepped back, her breath caught.
"Wow."
Then, to my shock, she reached for her phone and opened the camera. "I'm taking a picture." I stiffened. What if someone sees? She gave me a look. "Who's going to see? It's just for us." I hesitated, but the way she was looking at me, like I was something exquisite, made me nod. She snapped a few photos, her fingers brushing my waist as she adjusted my pose. Then she set the phone down and stepped closer. "You know," she said softly, "you don't have to hide this part of yourself." I swallowed hard. Jess would never. I'm not talking about Jess. Her hand touched my cheek, and suddenly, the air between us was electric. I should have pulled away, but I didn't. And then, in a heartbeat, she kissed me. It was soft at first, tentative, but when I didn't resist, she deepened it, her fingers tangling in the wig as she pulled me closer. I melted into her, the taste of her lipstick mingling with mine, the rustle of our dresses the only sound in the room. When we finally broke apart, my head was spinning. "You've always wanted this," she murmured. "Haven't you?" I had no answer. Or maybe I did, in the way my body leaned toward hers, in the way my heart pounded not just from fear, but from desire. That night, I didn't change back into my old clothes. I stayed in the dress, in the wig, in the persona Lila had helped me create. And for the first time, I wondered, was this just a fantasy? Or was it who I was meant to be all along? The kiss changed everything. For days afterward, I moved through life in a daze, replaying that moment in my head, Lila's lips on mine, the scent of her perfume, the way my body had responded without hesitation. I should have felt guilty. Jess was my girlfriend. But every time I closed my eyes, all I could think about was the way Lila had looked at me, seen me, in a way no one else ever had. Jess noticed my distraction, but chalked it up to work stress. She didn't press when I gave vague answers, didn't question why I suddenly seemed so distant. Meanwhile, Lila acted as if nothing had happened, cool, composed, her usual teasing self. But there was a new tension between us now, an unspoken charge in the air whenever we were alone. Then, one rainy afternoon, Jess left for a week-long conference. The second the door closed behind her, Lila turned to me, her eyes dark with intent. "We're not wasting this," she said. What followed was a whirlwind. Lila had a plan, a real plan for me. No more half measures, no more quick transformations before changing back. She wanted me to live as her creation, even if just for a few days. First, she took me shopping. Not online, not in some discreet corner of a thrift store, proper shopping in boutiques where the saleswomen smiled and called me miss, without a second glance. Lila coached me through it all, her hand resting possessively on the small of my back as I nervously browsed racks of skirts and blouses. She picked out everything. Sundresses that swayed around my thighs, lingerie that made me blush, a sleek pencil skirt that hugged my hips in a way that felt right in a deep, undeniable way. Back at the apartment, she made me practice my voice, softer, lighter, more melodic. I spent hours repeating phrases in front of the mirror, Lila correcting every flat syllable until my speech flowed naturally in a higher register. "Again," she'd say, her fingers tracing my jawline. "You're almost there." By the third day, I barely recognized myself, and not just physically. The way I moved, the way I thought, had shifted. I caught myself absent-mindedly smoothing my skirt when I sat, tucking my hair behind my ear. The wig now felt like a part of me, crossing my legs just so. The reflection in the mirror wasn't a man playing dress-up, it was her. The woman Lila had drawn out of me. And then the ultimate test, a night out. Not just a quick walk around the block, but a proper dinner at a cozy little Italian place downtown. Lila spent hours getting me ready, contouring my face to perfection, curling the wig into loose waves, slipping me into a little black dress that made my legs look endless. "Remember," she whispered as she clasped a delicate necklace around my throat, "tonight, you're not pretending. You just are." The restaurant was all soft lighting and murmured conversations. The hostess smiled warmly. "Table for two, ladies?" Lila squeezed my hand.
"See?" her touch said. "You belong here." And God, I did. Over wine and pasta, something inside me settled. The fear, the shame, the constant second-guessing, it all faded away. For the first time, I wasn't hiding. I was just me. Later, back at the apartment, tipsy on wine and euphoria, Lila led me to her room. This time, there was no hesitation when she kissed me. No guilt when her hands slid under my dress. As we fell onto the bed, a single thought burned brighter than any doubt. This is who I was meant to be. And when Jess came home a few days later, I knew things could never go back to the way they were. The week after Jess returned from her conference passed in a haze of silent tension. Every time she touched me, a casual brush of her hand against mine, a quick kiss before work, I had to fight the urge to pull away. My skin no longer felt like my own. The man she thought she was dating had quietly slipped away, replaced by someone else entirely. Lila watched it all unfold with knowing eyes. She didn't push, didn't gloat. But sometimes,
When Jess wasn't looking, she'd catch my gaze and hold it just a second too long, her lips curving into a secret smile. Then, one evening, Jess went to bed early, leaving Lila and me alone in the living room. The TV played softly in the background, but neither of us was watching. The air between us hummed, with everything left unsaid. Finally, Lila spoke. "You can't keep doing this," she said, her voice low but firm. "Pretending with her. Hiding from yourself." I swallowed hard. I don't know how to stop. She turned to face me fully, her expression unreadable. "Yes, you do." The next morning, I woke before Jess. For the first time in weeks, I didn't reach for my usual hoodie and jeans. Instead, I put on the soft cotton panties Lila had bought me, then a simple camisole. My hands shook as I pulled on a pair of women's skinny jeans, not as bold as a dress, but still a statement. A step forward. Jess stirred as I sat on the edge of the bed to slip into my flats. "Babe." Her voice was thick with sleep. "You're up early." Then she saw me. Really saw me. The silence that followed was deafening. Her gaze traveled from my painted nails to the subtle curve of the camisole against my chest. Lila's padded bras had become a staple, down to the unmistakably feminine cut of my jeans. "What?" Jess sat up slowly, her brow furrowing. "What are you wearing?" There was no turning back now. I took a deep breath. "I need to tell you something." The conversation that followed was messy, painful, raw. Jess cried. I cried. She asked questions I didn't have answers to yet. "How long have you felt this way? Do you even like women? Was any of us real?" The hardest part was watching her face when she put the pieces together about Lila. The betrayal in her eyes cut deeper than I'd expected. But through it all, one truth became clear. I couldn't stay. Not as her boyfriend. Not as a liar. I packed my bags that afternoon. Not just clothes, my things. The dresses Lila had helped me pick out, the makeup she taught me to use, the jewelry that had started as a game and become part of who I was. Jess stood in the doorway, arms crossed, her face unreadable. "Where will you go?" I hesitated, then told the truth. "Lila's friend has a spare room. Just for a little while, until I figure things out." Her laugh was sharp, brittle. Of course. There was nothing left to say. The first month on my own was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. Lila's friend, Mara, was a trans woman in her 30s who took one look at me and immediately understood. Her apartment became my safe haven, a place where I could experiment without fear, where she wasn't a secret but a given. Lila visited often. At first, we tiptoed around what had happened between us, both hyper-aware of the complicated history we'd created. But one night, as we sat on Mara's fire escape sharing a bottle of wine, she turned to me with sudden seriousness. "This isn't just about the clothes for you, is it?" The question hung in the air between us. I thought of the way my heart raced every time someone used my chosen name, Evelyn, after my grandmother. The quiet joy of slipping into a sundress on a lazy Sunday, the rightness I felt when Mara referred to me as girl, without a second thought. "No," I admitted softly. "It never was." Lila nodded, her expression unreadable. Then, to my surprise, she reached out and took my hand.
"Good."
It wasn't a declaration of love. It wasn't even a promise. But in that moment, it was enough. A year later, I stood in front of a different mirror, this one in my own tiny apartment, paid for with my first paycheck from the boutique where I now worked. The owner, a sharp-eyed French woman, had taken one look at my outfit during the interview and said, "You have style, Sherry." The woman staring back at me was someone I almost recognized. Her hair, my hair now no longer a wig, fell in soft waves to her shoulders. Her makeup was understated but polished. Her outfit, a tailored blazer over a silk blouse, paired with slim-fitting trousers, walking the perfect line between professional and undeniably feminine. Behind me, Lila appeared in the reflection, her chin resting on my shoulder. "Ready?" I took a deep breath. Today was my first appointment at the gender clinic. Just a consultation, just the very beginning of a long journey, but a beginning nonetheless. "Yeah," I said, turning to face her. "I'm ready." And for the first time in my life, it wasn't a lie. Thank you so much for watching till now. It means the world to have you here. This community is all about empowering each other and celebrating the incredible journeys of everyone on their path to living authentically. If you're ever feeling lost or alone, remember you have a whole family here for you. Hit that subscribe button, smash that like button, and let's keep inspiring each other, sending you all the love and strength in the world. Until next time, live your life by your rules.